Good day, YouTube. Today's topic. Here is a video. Marissa asked the question, what bases I've been stationed to, what bases I've visited. So I'm going to give you, within 6 minutes, my quick journey in 20 years. Joined the Air Force basic training just like everyone else. Was there for 6.5 weeks. And then that's the entrance of all enlisted for the Air Force, the gateway to the Air Force. Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio. Graduated from there, went to technical training. Most people fly out. I took a bus with some other people because we were going to Goodfellow Air Force Base in San Angelo, which is about 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours away from Lackland. I was in San Angelo at Goodfellow for 4 months. My tech school was 4 months long, and it was one of those tech schools that after 1 month, I could bring my family over if I wanted to, but we'd have to live off base, and I would have to pay for those tickets, my wife and my son, which is exactly what we did. The first month when I got to tech school, I lived in a dorm and I had a roommate, 2 people per room. That was a lot of fun. And after 1 month, 30 days, I found an apartment fully furnished with the exception of a television. And we bought a television. We lived there for 3 months while I finished tech school. From there, we went to our first base. I was active duty at that time. So we went to Maxwell Air Force Base in Montgomery, Alabama. We in-processed. I was there for 4 years as a firefighter. I never went anywhere, with the exception of one base, Tyndall Air Force Base, which is the panhandle of Florida. We were there for 1 day for training. When I retrained, after almost 4 years of being in the Air Force, I retrained into personnel, so I had to go back to tech school for personnel. That was at Keesler Air Force Base in Mississippi, Biloxi, Mississippi. I was there for 6 weeks. I was getting ready to go to a new place, so I thought when the Air Force said you're going to be assigned at Maxwell Air Force Base, it was a no-cost PCS. In other words, I didn't leave the base. I was there for another 2 years. When I was at personnel, as a personnelist, when I retrained, I went to Keesler Air Force Base 2 different times for short courses, TDY, which stands for temporary duty. That's a lot of fun. And then I separated from active duty because I was going to become an ROTC cadet, Reserve Officer Training Corps, for my commission. So I separated from active duty. I did ROTC. I had to do field training. Field training is just like BMT, basic military training. And some people went to South Dakota, some people went to Florida. I went right back to Lackland Air Force Base for a total of 4 weeks of field training and 2 weeks of classes. So I was there for 6 weeks. That was 6 years after I had gone through basic training. So if you think about it, I went through basic training twice. One for the enlisted side and one for field training for the officer side. I went in weighing about 158 pounds, which is what I weigh now. And after those 6 weeks, I was at 135 pounds because it was hot. And I lost a lot of weight. We run a lot. Then I came right back on active duty, Peterson Air Force Base in Colorado Springs. That was my number 2 choice. My number 1 choice was McChord Air Force Base in Tacoma, Washington. And I remember thinking I should have put Peterson as number 1. Luckily, that's exactly what I got. I was at Peterson for 2 years, 10 months, when I got a short notice assignment to PCS, Permanent Change of Station, and that was to Hickam Air Force Base, Hawaii. Well, before I go to Hawaii, one day at Peterson, my commander said she had to go to Greenland, to Thule Air Base, which is the North Pole. It's about 1,000 miles from the North Pole. And I said, that's awesome. You're going to have a good time. I didn't know anything about it, but she didn't want to go. So she said, do you want to go? Meaning me. And I said, of course. So I volunteered. I went with a team of 4, including myself. We flew from Colorado Springs to Baltimore, and there we caught an aircraft going straight into Thule, Greenland. And that's 1 flight in per week. So we got there on a Thursday, left the following Friday. That was a great experience. It's like being on another planet. No trees, no grass, no children, where I was in Thule, Greenland. So when I went to Hawaii, that was a short notice assignment. I asked to see if we can get a house on base for base housing, and luckily we were able to do that because the traffic in Honolulu is crazy. Honolulu, you think of Hawaii, you think of paradise. It is really nice. It's historic. That's where they filmed the movie, parts of Pearl Harbor. There's a lot of history from the real Pearl Harbor that happened on Hickam Air Force Base. So that's a great place. But Honolulu is crowded. There's a lot of traffic. If you're going to Hawaii, if you can live on base, do so. Next thing you know, we were supposed to be in Hawaii for 3 years. We were there for 10 months because the Air Force had a reduction in force, which means layoffs, cutbacks. I was affected. So I left active duty at almost the 10-year mark. We went back to Colorado Springs because we had a house there, and I went straight into civil service, an Air Force employee, and the reserves. The interesting thing is I have traveled more as a reservist than I did active duty, and I'll tell you about that now. I've been TDY when I've been in the Air Force Reserve many places. I've been to Charleston Air Force Base, the Pentagon twice, which is a great place. Even though I've only been there twice, there's so much to see that I haven't seen there. And as a reservist, one of the jobs that I had was equal opportunity, and that's a job that I loved. Did that for 3 years. With that, I had to go to technical school again, and that was at Patrick Air Force Base in Cocoa Beach, Florida. I was there for 3 months as a student with Army, Navy, Coast Guard, Marines, and Air Force. Great experience, right across the street from the Atlantic Ocean. So that's a great place that I've been to. My family went during spring break. I was in class. We'd meet up after class, and we'd meet up on weekends just to do things out there in Florida. From Colorado, at Peterson, where else have I been? Been to Montana, TDY, temporary duty. I have been to Arizona. I've been to Scott Air Force Base, but that was leisure when I was driving from Alabama to Colorado. We spent a week at Scott Air Force Base, which is southern Illinois, because a friend was stationed there. We got to hang out with him as well. As a civilian, Air Force civilian, I volunteered to go to Hungary. So I spent 7 weeks in Papa, Hungary, which is east of Vienna, Austria, and west of Budapest. Small little town. Not a lot of people speak English. The base is different, and it was awesome. And from there, I went to Aviano Air Base on a weekend. Got to stay there and see Italy as well. So I have seen a lot. As a reservist, 2 years ago, I went to Mildenhall, which is in England. I was in Mildenhall for 2 weeks doing my annual tour. That was a great experience as well, because I got to deal and meet a lot of people from England and work with them, a lot of civilians as well. The military obviously were Air Force. I got sick because the allergies are so bad in England, at least for me when I was there, that I went down the street about 5 miles away. There's another base with fighter aircraft. It's great, Lakenheath Air Base. And that was a good experience as well. However, because I was a reservist and only there for 2 weeks, I was not able to be seen by a medical doctor. So I bought some really good medicine. After that, I was good to go. Here I am today at Buckley Air Force Base, where I've been for a year, about a year and a half now, because I had previous time. But my contract here, active duty, is for 3 years. Buckley Air Force Base is in Aurora, Colorado. It is an Air Force Space Command. So some of the bases that I've been to, they're all different commands. Peterson, Buckley, Patrick Air Force Base, Air Force Space Command. Some of them are Air Education and Training Command, AETC. So these are training bases. That's Keesler. Anything with the school, Lackland, Maxwell Air Force Base. Those are AETC. I'm here for 3 years. We'll see what happens. The beginning of this video is the Air Force Academy. I've been there as well. I've been at Schriever, all the bases in Colorado Springs. And what you'll see is that the cadets were practicing for a graduation, which I will attend a week from tomorrow, and the President of the United States is going to speak. My daughter and I have made that decision, are going to go. I'll film as much as possible and share that with you. But that's just a listing of bases that I've been to for the Air Force. I'll end with this. I've volunteered for deployments to Saudi Arabia, in Africa. Don't know what base that was because that was a unique location. And Turkey, but I never got any of those. One time I was going to go to Bosnia. I was selected to go there for a deployment, but I was so new in the Air Force that my clearance hadn't come through that my friend went to go. I am still looking for a deployment. Anywhere that the Air Force can send me for 6 months or whatever time period, I have to go. We'll see what happens. I haven't had any luck with that. I don't like that, but that's just the way it goes is I've gone everywhere the Air Force has asked me to go and made the most of it. Have a great day. Take care.